to cut the long strap, rather than having to cut something 48 inches long, take your fabric and fold it several times over to make it shorter for you. Then take your marker, which I suggest a fabric marker, and measure over 2 inches. This doesn't need to be exact. And go ahead and strike a line. And then you can cut then to lay out your actual mask, you'll need to measure over 12 inches. I suggest using 3 marks so that when your marks is off, you'll quickly know. And you strike a line. You're going to put a mark at the 7-inch mark and the 12-inch mark. You're going to do that several times. 7 inches, 12 inches. Connect the dots. Then you're going to make a 6-inch mark and a 6-inch mark. And I like going ahead and marking the center of each of these pieces for lining up. And then I also like putting a 3-inch mark, a 3-inch mark, and it makes it a little faster to do it all at one time. Then on the 6-inch mark, you're going to draw a line, and these are the 2 inside pieces that make up the pocket, and this is the actual face shield. Then you're going to take these pieces over to the sewing machine, and you're going to need both your sewing machine and an iron. When you're doing your hemming, this is not an exact science, so you can basically hem over. This is a little trick. I use a charger cloth to start and end my sewing. Try to remember to do that. Then you don't have all kind of strings to cut off when you're done making a hem. And I didn't back stitch this because it's basically going to be sewn down internally when it's done. And do that to both pieces. Okay, next we're going to basically sew the inside pocket by lining up the 2 center marks that we marked earlier, which will put this piece right in the center of the larger piece that's the actual face mask in the inside. And once again, you don't need to back stitch on this because it's going to be internal and re-sewn in a later step. And this is about a 1/2 inch hem. Now what I like to do, and it just makes it a whole lot easier to work with, is I like to iron down both of these hems. Just a quick little press. Then flipping the material over, we're going to iron this hem. And while we're doing that, that also catches this down here, and it helps to have that iron down also. That just makes the project turn out a lot neater. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to insert the stiffener for the nose piece. This will help shape the mask around your nose. What I like doing is I like mine to be 4 inches long. So I like mine to be extra thick so that it stays put. So I basically just measure at 4 inches, 4 inches. And these pipe cleaners will just cut good with a good pair of scissors. And all I do is cut the pipe cleaners to make, which will be 6 4-inch pieces of pipe cleaner in the middle. I like taking a piece of tape to kind of just hold everything together. This isn't necessary, it just keeps everything from kind of running around on you, and make a little bundle. Then you want to take the fabric that you just ironed down, and they simply go in. You pull, you choose which end you want to have the top. You line it up on your center mark, put it underneath that little piece of hem, and I like using these little clothespins to kind of just keep everything from moving around on me. And then I take this over to the sewing machine and just simply do, it doesn't have to be a full pocket, it's not going to go anywhere. So I basically put my foot of my sewing machine right against the pipe cleaners and just sew a straight line. I do a little bit of back stitching. The next step is to actually sew and make the mask. What I do is I do a nice 3/4 to 1 inch fold like that, and then I do another fold up and over onto the mask. And I like using these little clips to kind of hold things in place while you're transferring over to the sewing machine. And we'll do that one more time. So I do a 3/4 to a 1 inch fold. Then I do another fold, and this is making the pockets that the lanyard that actually ties behind the neck and goes up over the top of the head, or if you prefer, you can do it another way and have it tied at the top of your head. A lot of times, just to make it a little neater and cooperative, I'll just take my iron that's sitting right here and just touch those two off. That way they tend to stay a little better for me. Come over to my sewing machine. Now these you are definitely need to back stitch, because this is like one of the crucial parts of the mask that actually holds everything in place. And as you can see, that fell out, so we'll put that back in. We'll come back up here, we'll run the charger off, and we're going to be about an 1/8 inch away. So we're going to do a pretty close seam to the edge. And I'm going to back stitch. Then I'm going to forward stitch. And then we do exactly the same sewing on the other side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be putting pleats in this so that the sides are smaller, and it will unpleat and make a cup for your face to actually sit into. And I found this to be probably the most difficult part of the entire operation. And all I do is I grab a little bit of fabric and use my little handy dandy safety pins, or you could use straight pins, you can use safety pins, and you just basically work up, make a nice little 1/2 inch or so pleat. And I like doing 3 of them. Okay, at this point, I did the pleats on with the face side up, and then I push the pleats downward so that I can go ahead and give them a little bit of a press so that they kind of stay nicer when I'm sewing. And I'm going to be sewing on the other side, on the back side. So I let that cool for a minute so that those pleats are better set. Now you flip it over, and you don't want to sew going into the pleats. You want to sew so you're riding over them, and you basically, all you're doing here is sewing down the pleats. So I'm going to sew like 1/8 of an inch away from where my original hem was for this pocket, so giving me plenty of room to still get the lanyard through and not narrowing down the mass. So basically I take this up to my sewing machine, and I leave those clips on for right now. And I like back stitching this also. And as I go, I can get rid of those pins to just give myself a little more room. Now I'm sewing the other side of the mask. The piece of material that I had for the lanyard wasn't long enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lengthen it. And this is a trick to how to bind 2 pieces of material together to make a longer strip. You lay them down face to face, and then on the back side you draw a straight line between the corners. And then you take this up to your sewing machine, and you don't need to worry about, because those are all going to be internally, and you simply run a straight seam and then when you're done with those face to face and you turn it over, and we're going to fold this several times, it makes a very nice joint for you. And you don't need this material, so on the waist side of this you can go ahead and leave at least 1/4 of an inch and get rid of that extra material, so it's not, because you're going to be folding this over several times. Now we're going to put a quick hem on both ends. A little trick to make things go faster, you can sew off of that one right on to the next one. The next step in making the lanyard And the lanyard is far more comfortable than elastic or some other materials. And if someone's going to be wearing this for a prolonged period of time, you can mark down the middle 1 inch all the way, or I usually just go ahead and fold, because it's going to be folded over again, so that you have nice finished ends on this. So all I'm doing is I'm folding it approximately in the center, and I'm using the iron to basically make the edges lay down so it's a little easier when we go to sew. I'm going to fold it in half, take it to the sewing machine. I put it well onto the material because it's so small, and I put a couple stitches in, and then I immediately back stitch. And then from that point, using my two hands, my thumb basically makes the curve, my other fingers makes it lay down, and once you get the hang of this, it goes pretty darn fast. And now coming up to our connector, and I take a little extra care going through that to make sure it gets sewn nice and flat. Now we have a lovely lanyard to hold this onto your neck, and this is a 1/4 inch to almost 3/8 wide, and it's certainly more comfortable to wear for a longer time than elastic, and some people can actually be allergic to elastic. What I like doing is I put it in from the bottom. Up here is your pipe cleaner, so you know that's the top, and you basically just have to work your way through the pleats with, I use a chopstick to fish it through. Then once I get it through, there's probably better ways to do this, but I just take a piece of tape on my chopstick, and then I take my lanyard and I fold it in half and put it with the tape. Another thing I learned was to put a second piece of tape going around it will help you not lose it in case you hit a binding spot as you pull it through. So I usually will do a little bit of twisting, a little bit of helping, and working it through. And then I simply go down the next one, doing the same thing, opening up the pleats, working the chopstick through the material. And you don't want this to be too loose, because the friction kind of helps keep the mask in the right position on your face. But you also don't want it so tight that you have to fight it to get it to thread up through for you. And we have a finished, well-fitting, comfortable, very effective 2-layer mask. And this will blouse out and will go very large in the center, and it'll stay smaller on the sides. And when we actually show you how that fits, it makes very nice. Then you'll take the nose and you bend it around your nose, and you'll get a good seal there. Now you can actually you can buy filter material from places like Amazon and basically cut it to this size by 6 inches. and you basically can work it in the pocket up and down, and then there's a filter that can get you up to like 90, maybe 95% efficient from everything. You can also use vacuum bags. You can also use a paper towel if you want to add some more filtration, or even another piece of cloth on the inside. Better, but you simply put it up on your head, pull it behind, tie it in a bow, then go ahead and ensure that you get good fit up there. You can actually tighten these up depending on the shape of your face and get a better fit with the mask.